And we are back. It's another great episode of Liam Picks Fights, brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest game in DFS. Guys, if you want to get involved, go ahead, go to prizepicks.com. The information is in the description box below. Use my promo code Liam. They're going to deposit match you 100% up to $100. And it's very simple. You can go across different sports. You're not playing against, a million other people. It's just their projection. And do you think you can get an edge that way? Go ahead and give it a try. Prizepicks.com. My promo code is Liam. Thank you guys very much for tuning in today. I'm excited to bring you this show. We're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 48. It is headlined by a light heavyweight bout between Johnny Walker, formerly the star of the division, and Jamahal Hill, the new kid on the block, the guy who comes back storming with the knockout win over Jim Crute after his first setback against Paul Craig in the UFC. So I actually think we have a compelling main event here in place of a main event that I was very excited about. RDA, Fiziev, this was going to be a very special fight card. We still got a lot to work with, and I still think there's some interesting betting angles on this card. So I wanted to bring along two very smart cappers to break it down with me from bottom to top. And to do that, I brought along for the very first time my man Dan Levy from Best Fight Picks. Dan, how you doing today, brother?
Doing absolutely phenomenal. I appreciate you having me on, Liam.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. And you have been doing this quite a long time. I was impressed looking back at all the years of success that you've had. It's one thing to do something well for a day, but it's another thing to do it well for, several years stacked on top of each other. And so I think that there's a ton that I have to learn from you. I appreciate you coming on the show today, and I've appreciated the opportunity to go on your show, Half the Battle, before. So guys, the information's in the description box below. I know probably you've already seen Half the Battle, but if you haven't, go ahead and check it out and check out all the great work that Dan is doing. His information is in the description. My man as well, Z's MMA, returning friend of the show. You guys know Z, you love Z, the man behind the greatest receptacle in all of MMA betting beverages, the Odds Mug. Z, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Nice to see you always sporting the mugs, the Odds Mug, the Underdog Mug. I do know Dan actually has an Odds Mug, but he's got the limited edition that's actually a little bit different than the ones I give out now. So you might want to hold on to that, Levy. That might be a collector's item, in the future.
Sell an NFT of it one day.
Yeah, right.
I love it. Gentlemen, we've got a great card to break down today. We've got two great guests to do it with. So I'm thankful for you guys being here. I'm thankful for the 16 people we already got rocking with us in the chat, and I'm sure more are going to file in. So without further ado, let's start it off with a fight that has piqued my interest because Chad and Hellinger is my boy for life. This is a guy who went back and commented on my YouTube video and said smart bets when I bet on him as a massive underdog against Muin Gafurov on the Contender Series. And, my man Z has given me props for this bet before because I kept adding and adding and adding as the week went on because I didn't understand it. With Chad and Hellinger, I think the mistake that people make is they look at his resume, they look at his record as this whole product, and then try and judge him against that, and on top of that, he's 35 years old. So you think his capacity to improve is limited. But when I look at Chad and Hellinger, I look at a guy who completely transformed his life and career and went from being a 2-5 fighter to a guy on a 9-fight win streak with serious finishes over guys that you've heard of, Brady Highstand included. And then the Muin Gafurov fight, he has to gut one out against, a pressure-heavy, Russian-related, not real Russian, but Russian-esque wrestler. And Muin Gafurov, I felt like had some fraudulent vibes to him when I looked into him prior to that fight. But that being said, Muin Gafurov is much better than anybody that's been beaten by, Jesse Strader in his short career. And, Dan has talked about this week, the mismanagement of the career, and I think that that's a big factor. So with that being said, I'm going to kick it over to you by saying I think Chad and Hellinger is going to win this fight. I think he's a much more seasoned fighter and more experienced. Am I passionate about laying the money line here? No, because he's a significant favorite now. He was a significant underdog the last time I played him. But with that being said, I've seen a lot of underdog tickets on Jesse Strader this week. I think a lot of that's based on size and potential power. But I think in terms of the dog in the fight, Chad and Hellinger is a motherfucker. And I don't think you're going to put him away easy. So Chad and Hellinger for me is decided, and I think he's going to win this fight and likely finish it. So, Dan, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, listen, last time he was an underdog because he was fighting a 17-3 Ov. But like you said, you see that name Gaffarov, you're like, holy shit, he beat an Ov. But you actually look more into it, and the guy's not even Russian. But still, it was a good win. I mean, he went out there, he dug deep, he showed all areas of his game. And like you said, from going 2-5 to going 11-5, like, dude, I know guys on the regional scene that went 0-2 and decided to call it quits. So much respect to him. And then the issue with Strader is he's just too early to be fighting this level of competition, in my opinion. Like, this dude was 3-0 and he's fighting Marcelo Rojo, who was 14-5 at the time. Like, what the fuck is his management thinking? Like, that's disgusting, man. Like, I get it. Marcelo Rojo's 0-2 in the UFC, but he's 0-2 against Air Jordan and Kyler Phillips. Like, this is a completely different level of competition, man. So I just feel bad for Strader because I actually don't think he's bad at all. Like, I think that if you gave him some time to develop, like, he could actually come to the UFC like maybe 2 years from now and maybe be pretty good. But he got here too soon, and as a result, he's probably going to be, 2 or 3 and out. So give me Hellinger to pull away down the stretch.
Bam. Z, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I don't have any bets on it as of right now, but I think I'm more of the mind that Strader plus 200 is the value side. I just feel like they're going to have a good, honest scrap, and there's a lot of recency bias with Chad winning as a giant underdog on the Contender Series. But I just noticed too, Liam, if you do like that side, the Hellinger side, his knockout is plus 200. So I think this is going to be somewhat of a war. It's slated to finish inside the distance. And so if they're going to throw him down and you favor Chad, I think taking him by knockout at plus 200 is one way you could get invested in the fight. But for me, I'm, like I said, no money on the fight as of right now, but I'm more tempted on taking a small Strader at plus 200.
Fair play. And, I don't think it's outside the realm, right? I know my man Dan also pointed out the limited reach, even less than some of the ladies that are on this fight card this
All the
evening.
ladies on this card.
So, I think one of them he's at least tied, but either way, it is something that's of concern in a striking matchup. What I think is that Chad Hellinger has the wrestling in his back pocket here. I also don't think that he's a low IQ fighter. I think that if he's in a war that he feels like is going sideways, he's going to pressure grapple and try and take this guy to the ground. I think he can do that. And I also think that he's kind of got a pretty slick guillotine series. As a guy who likes to procure some guillotines myself, I've liked what I've seen from him in that position. I think that he can potentially find that finish here as well. And as we move on from this matchup, I just want to say from the words of Chad Hellinger himself, thanks, bro. A lot of experts were writing me off in that fight. Instead of going back and rubbing it in their faces, I give props to the guys who got it right. You are right again. A bet on Strader is a bad bet. So I'm just going to leave you guys with that. Chad Hellinger, a while ago, he put it on ice, and appreciate that he's interacting with the show. So we wish him the best of luck. Oh, Canada, I say once again, Chad Hellinger will ride on Saturday night. We move on to the next fight on the card, guys, at 115 pounds. Diana Balbita is going to be taking on Gloria De Paula. And Gloria De Paula let me down in her fight against Jinh Yu Frey. I thought that was a winnable matchup. But I'm also going to say that Jinh Yu Frey fought against type in that fight. If you listen to her, she credits after the fact. She had been working with Mindset Mike. I'm familiar with his work. He works with Wrestling Mindset. Those guys are really powerful. It helped my athletic career, at whatever limited stage that matters. But Jinh Yu Frey was much more aggressive, actually pursued takedowns there, which she had not done persistently in previous bouts. And in the second round, Gloria De Paula was styling on her in the striking, but then she got talked back into engaging, and she was able to get the takedowns in round 3. Gloria De Paula has been self-reflective. She's talked about the fact, I need to work on my wrestling. I need to get better there. That's where everybody, her entire career, has tried to take the fights. Diana Balbita, this is her problem. She tends to crash into the clinch. I think that she's a pretty good fighter in the sense that she could throw decent strikes. She has some power, but she's fought a very low level of competition. When she has stepped up in competition, she's lost consistently, normally in the first round. And people can talk about the ground game being the problem. She got outstruck by Ariane Lipsky cleanly. She got outstruck by, I forget her name now, Josiana or something like this, like 2 fights later. These are both in 2017, so obviously she's gotten a little better since then. But not that much better because she made some of the same mistakes against Liana Jojua. And granted, that was at 125 pounds, but I think that Gloria De Paula, is live to get on top of her in this fight. Hannah Goldie showed some poor fight IQ. She spent so much time at range in that fight. Every time she pursued takedowns, she was able to get them. I think that Gloria De Paula might switch it up and get takedowns in this fight, end up on top. Full disclosure, me and Just Win Baby gave out our best money line of the week as Gloria De Paula at plus money here. And that might be a little bit of a hot take. I know a lot of people are on the Balbita side here. I can understand why. She throws a good amount of volume. She gets hit with a ton of strikes. I think Gloria De Paula is the cleaner striker. I do think that she's going to be able to match her in range, which not a lot of women are able to do in terms of her size, her height, and her reach. And I also think that in the clinch, she's going to offer a lot in terms of knees, elbows. I think that a late finish here is not out of the question and a finish from on top. I also think that if Balbita gets on top in this fight, like she has been known to do, she might get submitted here. It's a problem that we've seen in the past that Gloria De Paula will stay on her back and play from guard. But that's not a problem against Balbita because Balbita has shown that if you play on your back from guard, it's been the same armbar setup several times at like 3 different years, different stages in her career that she's been finished with. Liana Jojua did it. Ariana Lipsky did it, all the same way. She's not very good from the top position. She's vulnerable. She's got long arms. She's gangly. I think on top or bottom, she's liable to get submitted here. Give me Gloria De Paula. I think she's going to find her first win in the UFC this weekend. Dan, how do you feel about this match?
I mean, it comes down to what kind of confidence we're dealing with De Paula, because like I think she's way better than she's shown in the UFC. Like I like the Contender Series fight. I like the striking. It's just, she hasn't really come into the UFC and put that stamp on things. Like I wanted her to go out there and beat Jin Yu Frey. The last fight was unfortunate. She got caught. We didn't really get to see how it was going to play out. So I still think she's got more left to give. And then you look at the records and, one's 14-6 and the other's 5-4. So it's kind of like, it looks like you should favor the 14-6, but then you look deeper and like most of her wins are like
14-6 against who? That's the question.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but literally against who? I mean, it's like 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 0-2, 1-5. Like it's like, okay, so she's got what we like to refer to as a padded record. So it's just, I got De Paula if she actually shows up this time, right? It's just, I don't know if at minus money I'm interested in taking that gamble because, maybe I'm just burnt about the fact that, she didn't come through for me against Jin Yu Frey. But then again, that last fight, I didn't bet her against Cheyenne. And I mean, that was horrendous, man. Like, but not saying that's going to happen here.
I honestly think that was over aggression because if you go back and watch that, she is like working hard from her back, trying to like set up a submission, actually forces Cheyenne to stand up out of her guard. And then she sees that she's standing up out of the guard. So she's like, haha, I can pursue her. And then she gets up to her feet, trying to go technical stand up and gets kicked right in the face. So yes, it was dumb, but I do think it was stupid aggression, which I will take as opposed to, a stupid mistake while you're running away, while you're not trying to engage. I think that she was trying to get into the fight and trying to be aggressive because she knew she needed to win the round after spending time on her back, and it cost her big time. And I don't think that's a high percentage outcome. I do think it was kind of a meme.
No, I mean, I don't expect her to get head kick knocked out again. It's just more so that now that she is coming off that head kick knockout, like where's her confidence at? I mean, is she going to be gun shy even more now? Like, so yeah, those kinds of things are my concerns. But if she actually shows up this time, then I think she can win a striking based decision. But it's an if for me.
Absolutely. And, before I kick it over to my man Z, this is a fight that I do have a full write-up on in depth. On my Twitter account, you could find the post that I made from Just Win Baby, and that was his written explanation. I have a deep written explanation as well for why I favor her in the fight, what I think the honest line should be. So if you guys want that, get at me on Twitter and just show me that you've subscribed to the channel here today, and I will go ahead and send you my full breakdown. So Z, how do you feel about this one?
The way I'm looking at this, first and foremost, I think Diana Bell Beautiful fits the strawweight division much better than the flyweight division. Since neither of them are really good wrestlers, I think it's going to be contested on the feet. Of course, when you're looking to bet Balbita, especially as a favorite, there's a big concern about her ground game and lack of wrestling. So that's why I haven't bet it yet. But if this is on the feet, I actually favor Balbita by a pretty big margin. You know, she's got a good leg kick. She's got a good right hand. It's a bit of a winging right hand, but she finds the mark with it. And I'll concede she does crash into the pocket, but overall, when I was watching them fight, I was like, oh, Diana is clearly the better striker here. And stylistically, since I don't think either of them are great wrestlers, can we really count on Paula to take the fight down? If she does, that's going to bode well for her. And again, that's why I didn't bet Balbita so far, but I'm more leaning towards Balbita. The opening line at minus 250 was crazy. So anybody who got in on the early line of Paula, props to you. But if that movement continues in that direction, I'll probably get involved with Balbita at plus money. And even as a slight favorite, I'm a little bit tempted. But again, I can't overlook that big red flag in the grappling department.
Fair play. And we got my man Jack Attack in the comments. Very sharp capper as well. Says, I think Balbita is the better striker too. I'm just going to disagree. You know, I do think that it's possible. You know, I do think she throws a good amount of volume. She does throw in some nice combinations at times. If I had to criticize Paula, sometimes it takes her a little bit of time in a fight to get warmed up and start throwing her combinations and letting go of her strikes in combination. But I do think that strike for strike, she will be able to compete with her. She might not have the same amount of power, but I do think that she'll throw at a similar volume. And like I said, I think she does have some limited grappling upside here. So give me Gloria Paula, but we can move on to the next fight here. We've got Chaz Skelly in a potential retirement fight here at 145 pounds. He's taking on Mark Streagle. You know, one of the guys I'm much less familiar with on this fight card, full disclosure. You know, I do rate Chaz Skelly. I had a bet on him against Jamahal Emmers the night that fight went to shreds, unfortunately. And, you know, I felt like that was a very winnable matchup for Chaz. I think his grappling is pretty high level. And so if he's got somebody who's going to try and engage him in grappling here in Streagle, I do think that's a fight that favors Chaz Skelly, but he is a 2-1 favorite here. There is some retirement concerns. So, you know, do I want to lay chalk with Chaz Skelly? That's something I'm a little less interested in doing. Am I interested in potentially pursuing Chaz Skelly props? I could be talked into Chaz Skelly props. Dan, how do you feel about this matchup?
I mean, I'm not really too worried about the retirement just because he's been like planning this retirement for a long ass time, like maybe like 2 years now. He just hasn't had the chance to actually have the fight. Like the Emmers fight was supposed to be his retirement fight, but Emmers, he was having back spasms. Is that what it was, Liam? Something like that. So I got to know from your perspective, how does it feel to like have a bet on a guy? Your dude walks in the cage and then they announce that the other dude can't make the walk. Like I've never experienced that before, ever.
I would just like it to be paid out as a win because my guy did everything right. My guy's in the cage. That's a forfeit, and it's okay. Like it's no big deal. Sometimes you got a medical forfeit. I think we could all understand that, but that's a forfeit, homie. The guy's already out there. They just like told Chaz like, no, just walk back. Like that. I felt it was really anticlimactic. They should have raised his hand and just gave him the win, moved on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, according to the streets and according to wrestling rules, Chaz Skelly won that fight. Just like according to the streets, Kyle Daukaus knocked out and submitted Kevin Holland. That's just the bottom line. But I mean, I just don't think Streagle's really on this level. Personally, I think, you know, speaking of padded records, I think he's also got a padded record. I think he looks like an incredibly built individual, but it doesn't always translate when it comes down to fight night, you know. But that being said, maybe he's got something for Chaz early. I mean, he's still a good athlete. You know, Chaz is, you know, it's funny. Chaz, like, he's got the beer belly and this and that, but man, he can fucking grapple his ass off. And at one point, he was like on track to like breaking the record for most submissions in featherweight history. He just never got a chance to do that because injuries and activity, this and that. But I think he's a stud, and I think he probably submits this guy.
Fair play. I totally agree. Z, how do you feel?
Yeah, betting wise, Chaz by sub at plus 150 is the most tempting thing from my perspective, but it's really tough when you have, you know, layoff, injuries, retirement talk. Now Streagle, I don't think his ceiling's very high. I don't think his skill set's very high, but like Levi said, you know, he's jacked. He's got the dib Filipino, but I think Chaz submits him. As I wanted to mention too, as far as the forfeit, you go back to UFC 3, and my man Harold Howard should have got that win over Hoist Gracie by forfeit, because Gracie, now this is a tangent, but Gracie gets in the cage after that war with Chemo, takes one look at savage Harold Howard, and literally leaves the cage. So, you know, Chaz never made the walk. It happened in the back, right? But Hoist made the walk to the cage, took one look at him, turned around and left. That's got to be a loss on Hoist's record. I'm sorry. But getting back to this fight, yeah, I just think it's very, very sketchy to bet on Skelly. But without those factors, he would be a giant favorite here. He's got a ground game advantage. He's very durable. Levi was saying he doesn't have the record for most submissions in the featherweight division, but he does have the record for the fast submission in the featherweight division versus Maximo Blanco. So I expect Chaz a quick sub here and ride off into the suns. But do I want to pay plus 150 for a submission prop with those intangibles in play? It's not the most tempting thing, but that's the way I would target the fight if you had to bet it.
I totally feel you. And I just want to point out for the people, you can get plus 150 in a lot of places in the market on the inside the distance for Chaz Skelly. I think that that's a good look if you're looking to play the Chaz Skelly side. My concern with the sub line is that it's like plus 200, plus 210 best available on the U.S. domestic Z. And the problem with that, though, is that if you can get plus 150 on the ITD, just covers a lot more outcomes. And, you know, I think that Chaz submits him, you know, more often than not. But who's to say that Chaz doesn't just posture up and punch him if he's controlling him? And it's a fight, you know, and I just don't want to lose money betting a bunch of money on Chaz submission. And then, you know, when I could get plus money right now on him to win inside the distance.
No, definitely. With those numbers,
something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, with those numbers, certainly opt inside the distance. Even I'm getting 50 for the sub and plus 125 for inside the distance. So again, you might want to opt for inside the distance, but is it really enough to trust a retirement fighter? That's but good point there.
Fair. I think fair play all around. And that's the difference there is if you want to back it for a full unit, maybe you look at that inside the distance. If you're looking to make a smaller play and just try and capitalize on value, maybe Skelly by sub plus 210 is not a bad look. But moving on, guys, we have next up in the 135-pound division. Is that right? Women's bantamweight, Jessica Rose Clark and Stephanie Edgar. This is a fight that, you know, I don't have a tremendous amount of passion about, but it does seem like a fight where, you know, my betting habits would tend me towards dog or pass. I look towards the dog in the earlier WMMA bout as well. It's not something I do every time, but it is when I'm looking to bet. What I'm more interested in is the plus money side. And so looking at this fight, man, I don't know how to get a good gauge on Edgar. You know, I think that Cortez matchup was a tough stylistic matchup. So I feel like she has an ability to show a better performance in this fight. I don't really know exactly what to make of Jessica Rose Clark. She seemed like she's done the right things in terms of going back and forth between game plans. But I wonder how successful she's going to be in keeping the fight upright here. You know, if she's able to get on top in the wrestling exchanges, she might fare well. But I think that that's a you know, very live outcome for her to get taken down here. Because I know that judo is not the best base for MMA, but it does give you good hips. And when you get into these, a lot of times you see upper body clinch exchanges. The headlocks is the one that everybody jokes about, but it's not just side headlocks. It's also like upper body throws, double underhooks, body locks, bear hugs, trips. A lot of that stuff all comes from the same positions, and judo players that have good hips, they're just not going to be easy to barrel over there. So I do think that, you know, Jessica Rose Clark's probably going to have to win this on the feet to win the fight. And so that makes me concerned here, laying the chalk on that side. So yeah, I'd probably be looking at the Edgar side or passing here. And to be honest, I'd want to do more due diligence on the Edgar side before putting my money where my mouth is. But yeah, that seems more tempting to me. Dan, how do you feel about this one?
I mean, we know exactly what Edgar wants to do. I mean, there's not really a surprise here. She's a judo player. I mean, she even went 1-1 against Ronda Rousey on the judo scene, right? So We know exactly what she wants to do. I mean, you said it right. I mean, Jessica Rose Clark she's got to watch out for these hips, man. She's got to make sure that she's level, and because you let someone like Stephanie Edgar get under you and you're going for a ride, right? So, but I like what I've seen from Rose Clark these last 2 fights, man. I mean, she took like close to a year off after her last loss. It seems like she got her body right. She got her surgery. She's been doing her strength and conditioning. I mean, I felt like that first fight against Sarah Alpar was a really well-rounded performance. Like, I get that it's Sarah Alpar, but like she treated her very, very accordingly. And then the next fight with Jocelyn, like we know Jocelyn's only path is on the feet, and you saw Jessie go out there and land 5 takedowns in that fight. So I like what I've been seeing, man. So I think she's going to come out here smart, keep it standing, piece her up, and maybe down the stretch even land a takedown or 2 of her own. And I'm cold as fuck. I'm about to grab a hoodie real quick.
Hell yeah, dude. I totally understand. I got the heater going over here at the Liam Picks Fight Studio, so no shade from this side. Z, how do you feel, my brother? Do you like this matchup from a betting perspective?
Levy doesn't know cold. No, I'm just playing. I was actually half impressed with Edgar in her last fight out. You know, she didn't look half bad. But when you watch Jessica Rose Clark, she's got decent striking, moves well, and I really like what Uncle did in the chat there. He was impressed with her fight IQ, having gone to the wrestling, and that's what I took away from it as well. So, yeah, I don't know. This one's very tough for me. I'm same with you, Liam. I should probably do more due diligence on it. I think I don't really have any interest in betting it as of right now. Maybe Jessica Rose Clark looks like a very solid favorite if she's coming in here outstriking Edgar, getting opportunistic takedowns, pushing her against the fence and just kind of working her. But I don't know. Something's like I think Stephanie could make this a closer fight than odds suggest. So again, I'm kind of flip flopping. I know people hate that. They go just make a pick and be solid on it. But this is honestly one of those ones where, especially when you consider the line, I think it's tough. But I'm gonna go with Jessica Rose Clark. I think she mixes it up and en route to a pretty solid decision. Maybe she does look like a much bigger favorite. Maybe the live line does have her more like minus 400 towards the end of the fight. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Jessica Rose Clark, but I haven't bet it and no real interest.
Fair play. And, I have not bet this fight, but like I said, I do have some small interest in betting the Edgar side here. I will look into it more before deciding whether or not I'm going to do that. But I also think that when you can get, basically lines that are no longer on market, that's normally something that's pretty profitable. And I have access to lines that are, currently already bet down across the rest of the market. So that's something I'm considering. I'll leave that clue with you. If you guys are smart, you can go find it yourself. But that's just something I'm considering on this fight card. But with that being said, guys, we can move along to a more interesting fight. Shout out to everybody in the chat real quick as we're getting cracking here. Everybody drop a like on this video. Get subscribed if you haven't already. But I already see the boys in here, Notorious, Tim, Chris, for the love of MMA. Appreciate you. Uncle Wheezy, Jack Attack. A lot of people from the David Onama Dome are in here. We're about to break down David Onama's matchup. So shout out to everybody in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Wouldn't be here without you. I think that this is a fantastic fight. I think that this fight should be on the main card. I'm a little bit surprised that it's not, but I think that they're trying to give David Onama a chance to grow. And I think Gabriel Benitez a chance to bounce back. I think that both guys have a winnable fight in front of them here. But with that being said, I did come down on a different betting side than one of our guests. And so with that being said, I'm going to give them the due respect. My man, Dan, I know you have a bet on this fight. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, listen, let me start off by talking about how much respect I have for Gabriel Benitez. I mean, this is a guy who cashed a plus 150 for me against Sam Cecilia, cashed a max bet at minus 120 for me against Humberto Bandone. I mean, true Mexican warrior. You already know about how hard this guy kicks. The punches come straight down the pipe. You shoot a sloppy takedown on Gabriel. I mean, he's got a nasty opportunistic guillotine right there waiting for you. So, I mean, I love this guy. I mean, how can you not be a fan of Gabriel Mowgli Benitez? He's always been exciting to watch. So the whole thing here is like, the vet versus the inexperienced prospect, right? And I get why people are tempted to take the vet at dog money. I mean, who the fuck has David Onama fought? And Gabriel's been in there with some of the best guys on planet Earth. So I get that completely. It's just that, sometimes like with these up and coming prospects, like you were on Michael Morales against Trevin Giles. And I kind of consider this a similar spot. Like, yeah, Trevin Giles has been in there with a better competition. Trevin Giles was the underdog. Like, what the fuck has Michael Morales done to be a favorite over Trevin Giles? But sometimes you got to gauge their potential. And I'm not sitting here saying that Onama is going to be a future top 15 or a future top 10. I'm not saying any of that. Like, I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Like, who knows? But what I do think is that he's catching Gabriel Benitez at the right time. Like, I thought that Billy Q fight, that it was uncomfortable to watch at times. Like, I was expecting a hard, honest fight. And I know they got fight of the night, but like, and I know Gabriel had a moment or two, but like, dude, that was a beatdown, man. And like, when you get stopped, like from a body triangle on back mount because the ref feels uncomfortable watching you take so many unanswered shots, like it wasn't your standard TKO where like, the dude's covering up, ready to go home. It wasn't like that. I mean, you got to actually put Mowgli out to make him want to go home. He's not a quitter by any means. The ref literally was uncomfortable watching it, just like I was when I rewatched it, man. And I think that Onama actually, on that short notice fight with Mason Jones, 4-day notice, I thought he showed a lot of heart, man. Because 4-day notice, that means you're gonna gas out right away. That means that the entire 15 minutes is all off heart. So if that was all off heart, now I'm curious to see what he looks like with a full camp. And also, like, I get he hasn't fought anybody on his regional scene, but sometimes these guys rise to the occasion. When I bet on Sodiq Yusuff against Gabriel Benitez, Sodiq Yusuff was only 9-1 at the time. When I bet Omar Morales against Gabriel Benitez, Omar Morales was only 9-0 at the time. So I've had success betting inexperienced, unproven guys against Gabriel. But how they match up stylistically, like, look, if you want to go kick for kick and see who the harder kicker is, then yeah, I think Gabriel wins that fight all day. But there's something different about that African power, man. I talk about it all the time. Like, I don't fade Russians and I don't fade Africans. I mean, there's an exception here and there, maybe an Oluwale Bangbose or an Antigulov or whatever. But for the most part, I don't bet against Russians or Africans. This dude's from Uganda, and I think he's going to come out here. Like, he might not be the more technical guy than Mowgli, but I don't think it really matters. I mean, did you see how Sodiq was walking him down and really didn't give a shit about anything Mowgli threw back, which actually was the reason Sodiq got dropped in that fight. But like, dude, Sodiq was literally walking him down without a care in the world. Omar, like, hadn't fought anybody at the time either. He was able to go 3 rounds with him. So I think that this kid rises to the occasion, and I think he's catching Gabriel at the perfect time. I felt like that Billy Q fight was a sign of a decline in Gabriel. Now, that might be a controversial opinion. I mean, I got a lot of respect for Billy Q. I mean, y'all that have followed me know I had him on my show last week. Like, you know how much I love Billy Q. But I was actually expecting that to be like a real back and forth fight. And it was honestly like 90% of it was a one-sided beatdown, man. I mean, like I said, Gabriel had a moment or two, but like for the most part, that was uncomfortable. And I just can't like watch a fight like that and then want to put money on that guy. And maybe I'm wrong. I see a lot of overconfidence on Benitez here. Like I said, I get why, man. Like, he's been in there with real guys and all that, and he's the underdog. So I get that, but I view this like Michael Morales and Trevin Giles. The unproven guy is going to rise to the occasion, and I think he's going to get a knockout here.
Fair play. I think that is his maximal win condition, and I wouldn't be altogether stunned to see him maximize it this weekend. Z, how do you feel about this?
For me, I just feel like this is a huge learning fight. You can sit back on this one and just see what's going to happen. Fair play if you're passionate on either side, but to me, I mean, we're going to see David Onama now make his real UFC debut, because a short notice debut, oftentimes fighters drop the ball. You remember even Ignacio Bahamundes lost his debut to John McDessie. Another fighter later on in the card, Jonathan Pierce, lost his debut to Joe Lozon up a division. So crazy things can happen in your debut. And honestly, I've heard both takes.
Boston. That was a brutal matchup for JSP. How do you make him fight Lozon in Boston on short notice, dude?
How does he lose to Lozon? How does he lose? Like the guy we're seeing now.
Did you see that finish?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody would have lost to Lozon. He's in like the worst power half of all time.
You don't bet against Lozon in Boston. Remember that one kid? What was the name of the kid that was on the Ultimate Fighter that like did like pull that whole shenanigan while he was cutting weight, and then he fought Lozon in Boston, and Lozon absolutely embarrassed him in a way where we never heard from the kid again. What was his name? Z, do you remember?
I don't remember.
What's that? Hold on, let me pull up Joe Lozon's resume, because like he had like a similar beatdown than he did to Jonathan Pierce against this one kid. You'll know who it is when I mention him. Hold on. what was this motherfucker's name?
I love it.
Gabe Rudiger. You remember that shit, Z? Like he fucking picked this dude up, slammed him, armbarred him, destroyed him.
12 years ago.
Hell yeah, bro. Like that's what happens when you fight Lozon in Boston.
Never
guess,
forget.
Yeah.
Z, did you have final thoughts there?
Yeah. Basically, I'm just gonna sit back. Onama is relatively inexperienced, but if you're just comparing their number of pro fights, it's tough because Onama also went 10-0 as an amateur, and like 20 or so of Gabriel's fights are the Mexican regional scene, which is essentially amateur as well. So I think the experience edge might not be as crazy different, but of course Benitez has been in there with real guys, fought in the UFC for many, many years. So from that perspective, sure. But what I was saying was, I've heard both takes on that Onama debut, where some people say he looked really good versus Mason Jones, who's an extremely tough out, hard fighter to look good against, and other people saying that his success in that fight is overblown. I'm of the mind that he did look good and that Mason Jones is a stern test, especially in a debut up a division. So, this is one where I think we're going to learn a lot about Onama. Maybe he comes in here, eats a body shot, and gets taken out. So many different things could happen, but I will say I'm not betting Mowgli as a dog in this spot, and that should really speak volumes to my perspective on the fight. I think it's a sit back, let these two go in there, bang it out, and we're going to have a lot more information about Onama moving forward.
I feel like the Joker right now. And here we go. So I'm on the Benitez side here this weekend, folks. And if I could get the video to catch up here, my goodness. So the reason being is simple, right? I came into this week feeling pretty confident that I was going to fade Gabriel Benitez. And when some people asked me my initial thoughts, I'm like, dude, Benitez looked so crap. Like he looked like shit against Billy Q. I'm like, no way. So I go back and I rewatch the fight, and I do disagree just a little bit about the assessment on the Billy Q fight. And I thought, number one, he showed a lot of heart there. Billy Q has some of the best pace in the division, dwarfed maybe only by Shane Burgos, right? Like Shane was able to keep a pace that he couldn't sustain, but most of the time it's Billy setting a pace that people can't sustain. And he was able to do that to Mowgli, but I thought it was admirable that Mowgli got hurt badly in the first round. And we've seen Mowgli in the past get hurt in the first round and get finished, and he was able to survive. And, Billy Q jumped into his guard looking for that ground and pound TKO and had to stand up out of it because he went for that arm bar. And Billy Q is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? He trains in the gi, he trains all the time. Guy loves being on the ground. Then you look at this guy, David Onama. He's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Zach Cummings. He got that blue belt, I believe, September of 2020. So the guy is like way less experienced on the ground than the quality of guys that Mowgli has competed with in the UFC and shown that he can grapple with them effectively and cause real threats. When I watch David Onama's regional tape, I see mistake after mistake in the grappling portions of the fight. He was on top in the full guard. He gets swept into the mount from a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, I believe that was. But I think his name was Justin. I can't remember everybody's tape off the top of my head. Yeah, there you go. So I've done a lot of tape this week. But the other thing is, like, I then look at David Onama. He gets to advantageous positions. He loses them. He is spending a lot of his fights in the aggregate defending takedowns. And then oftentimes it's because he goes for a takedown, like he goes for the same outside trip. It doesn't land. And then the guy starts trying to take him down and he gets taken down. And I'm like, I don't understand the process to what he's doing at times in the cage. And maybe he'll prove me wrong here by making some advancements, right? He's at a good camp, but he's also going against a guy who's at AKA and who's been around and who's fought real guys. And even the fights he's lost, they're against real guys who are better in his domain, right? Omar Morales is a kickboxer with a lot of kickboxing experience that just so happened to not have that much MMA experience. He came in as an older guy, and then he tuned him up a little bit on the feet in a competitive striking battle. I'm not sure that Onama is going to tune him up on the feet in a competitive striking battle. He might have more power, and he could land at a higher volume, but I'm not sold on the fact that he's going to do that at a high clip. I did not like how Onama dealt with leg kicks either on the regionals. And I know you mentioned, Dan, that one guy who tore his knee apart on the checked kick. So I will grant that, yes, he has shown better instincts as his career has gone on. However, it's still like hit and miss. It's not like reactive. It's not, sniffing and obviously nobody is, but the Jose Aldo, every time you throw one, it's a check. It's like every fifth kick, he might
let me say
occasionally
that,
remember to check it. And we've seen Mowgli kick the back leg. So that's impossible to check. Yes, Z.
I was just going to say there's a crazy fake news going around that Pedro landed like 20 or 30 kicks on Aldo. He landed 0. Aldo was on that. He checks every single kick. It's beautiful. And having money on Aldo in that spot was very fun to watch.
Yeah, actually, I talked to Billy Q about that fight because in his fight with Burgos, what was his downfall was those fucking calf kicks. And, I pointed out how, like, obviously with the calf kick, the first line of defense is don't fucking get hit by it, right? But you saw that fight between Jose Aldo and Pedro Munoz that Z just referred to, and that was like the blueprint on how to deal with calf kicks. Like, that was a genius performance by Aldo.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you guys completely. But just to close the book on this matchup, guys, I think that Gabriel Benitez has proven a little bit more to me so far in the UFC. I don't think he should be a minus 200. I don't think he's going to wash David Onama. I don't think David Onama's a bomb. I just think that David Onama hasn't really fought that many good guys. When he fought Mason Jones up a weight class, that was short notice for Mason Jones too. And Mason Jones said after the fight, he's like, I don't know why 3 minutes into this fight, I felt like I gassed. And so then we're all saying, like, man, he looked great in that fight. He landed a lot of shots. He also got hurt in that fight. He did get rocked in that fight. And I don't think Mason Jones is the world's biggest hitter. He's not like, a no power guy, but he's not the biggest hitter either. So, man, I just think that Gabriel Benitez is going to put this guy in some danger. And Onama, like I said, I don't think that Gabriel Benitez is going to push the wrestling in this fight. I see guys in the chat asking, do I think no, I don't think he's going to push the wrestling here. What I do think is that Onama might. And if he does, I think he might get out grappled. I think he might get out wrestled by Gabriel Benitez. I think he might find out the hard way. And Gabriel Benitez, like Dan mentioned, he's got that sneaky guillotine. He's got a pretty good armbar series. Billy Q, I had to give it respect. It's like that's black belt level series. I'm not saying he's a black belt level jiu-jitsu guy. He has good MMA jiu-jitsu. I think that could be a problem for Onama, who's shown that he has mediocre MMA jiu-jitsu at this point, and he's getting better, and he's working with James Krause. He's working with the right guys who have some good top control. I don't think he's a bum. I just think he's made positionally unsound decisions that have cost him. And if you're going against a good guy and you're stuck underneath and mount, it could be the fight, period, against anybody good. And Gabriel Benitez, I think, is a good fighter. If he gets on top of you in the mount, he can finish you. I just don't know that Onama is going to put himself in good positions in this fight. I'm excited to see how it shakes out. I think that my true line, I'll just disclose to you guys, minus 125, Gabriel Benitez. I think he should be 55% here. And I think that Onama is a good fighter with some upside. Like you mentioned, I think his durability is sound, but a little bit untested. Let's see how it shakes out against a durable and tested UFC vet in Gabriel Benitez, who I agree is somewhat on the on the decline. But at 32, I'm still willing to play him. He hasn't gotten to the range where he's going to be knocked out in every fight or something like this. Granted, I will just point out on the exit here, featherweight is one of the younger divisions by age in the UFC. You see that in the flyweight class as well as the featherweight class. So just something to bear in mind. It is a young man's game fighting, but it is especially so at the featherweight division. So we can continue, guys, on this card.
I wasn't allowed to counter some things.
Oh, sure. Absolutely, brother.
Okay, we're not going to take up all the time in the world. I just want to say a few things. Look, if it's vet lesson time, it's vet lesson time. I mean, that shit happens all the time, and it won't surprise me at all. You already know what kind of respect I have for Mowgli. The only thing I disagree with, I mean, maybe I don't disagree, but maybe I do disagree. Like, calling him a mediocre grappler. Like, if he was a mediocre grappler, Mason Jones, who's a black belt, would have submitted him when he took his back. But the fact of the matter is he was able to reverse the position and get on top. Now, you could make an argument, well, that wasn't about his ability on the mat. That was more so his athletic traits. Okay, well, that goes back to I don't fade Africans because they can do things that other guys can't do.
Well, I'm arguing that Mason Jones was gassed. So I'm saying Mason Jones.
Why was Mason Jones gassed? Because he didn't have a dude named Alan Patrick who was fucking pulling guard. He had an African going after him, touching his chin. That's why he was gassed.
Well, I totally agree with you. I agree with you there. But I also just think that right now, if you put Mowgli Benitez in there with Mason Jones, I don't know that Mason Jones is a massive favorite. You know, I think that
I
would
got Mason
be.
in that fight,
No,
but
I would take Mason there,
Liam,
but
it's up a division, and Mason Jones is a motherfucker.
Mason would fuck his ass up. And
Yeah.
look, I'm not saying Mason's a top 15 guy or anything like that. I think
Mowgli's
Mason's
fought
going
at
to be like
55 too, though. Mowgli's fought at 55 too.
Mason's
like,
gonna
yes, he's
just
better at 45, but
Mason's going to be that guy that just has a lot of exciting fights. Like that Mike Davis fight was so fun to watch, man. And so was the
Mason-
Onama fight.
And
So-
Mason's never like Mowgli can bounce between divisions. Mason's never going to be 5. You see the size of his head; he's got a blockhead. He's a tank.
absolutely. And he fought at 70. So I don't disparage any of those things. I thought that Onama performance was impressive, but does it tell me that he should be favored at 65 or 60% to be?
No, you're right.
Like
You're right.
Mowgli?
It's a leap of faith. It's a leap of faith 100%. Like I
don't blame you for taking it. I thought I was going to do it with you, but just the more I looked into it, the more concerns I had. So I'm willing to take the dog shot, and I'm willing to be wrong as well. You know, that's why we take these bets. I'd rather have the underdog money here with the question marks that I have in my head.
I'm just surprised because you were very, very sharp on, not saying that you're going to be wrong on this. You might be right. Like there's a lot of smart people on this and we get why they're on it. But like you were on that Michael Morales, like you were like one of the only people on Michael Morales. Like literally everybody was on Trevin Giles as if it was some kind of lock because of the exact same reasons that everyone's on Benitez this week. The experience.
Well,
the
I also
price.
just fade Trevin Giles. Like I faded him with Duplessis. Like there's just sometimes when I don't believe in somebody, and maybe he'll have improvements in the future, but he also is coming down a division. Hate that. And that's the other thing. Onama's durability checked out 100% against Mason Jones at 155 pounds. At 145 pounds, who's the hardest guy to ever touch him on the chin?
Exactly. It's gonna be Mowgli on Saturday.
And then we'll have our answers, boys. So it'll be a hell of a scrap. I think that the next fight up is a fun scrap as well. Jay Perrin, not super familiar with him, but Mario Bautista, you know, he's not really a guy who's going to come in and get in a boring fight. He likes to get out there and scrap. He puts his chin on the line. Much too much for my liking at this favorite price tag. But that being said, you know, if it's the right opponent, it's the right opponent. I don't know enough about his opponent to fade him here. I got to do my due diligence on that side. But I do know that I don't love Mario Bautista as a massive favorite, personally speaking. So I'm going to kick it to Dan with that being said, and we'll hear what he has to say about this matchup.
So what's interesting is what you said, like Mario's never in a boring fight, but I'm questioning if Jay Perrin can make him be in a boring fight. Because the thing about Jay Perrin is like, he is nothing special at all, but he's also like not shitty. He's just kind of decent everywhere type thing, right? Like, so I'm curious to see if Jay Perrin can make this a boring fight. Because like you watch the tape on Jay Perrin, you're not going to be impressed, but you're also not going to come out being like, oh, he's chinny or oh, he's this. It's just kind of like, you know, whatever, right? So with Bautista coming off the KO loss, you got to question where's his confidence at. You know, he's only 8-2 as a pro. Look, he should definitely be favored here. Much more experience, fought the better guys, all that stuff. We just got to see what Jay Perrin looks like in the UFC's octagon under the bright lights, but I have not been impressed with him. So give me Bautista. I just don't feel like laying no minus 350 on Bautista with the way he fights.
Fair play. And Z, how do you feel about this one?
To be honest, I haven't looked deep into it, but I think Mario is a rightful favorite. Not sure if it should be that well, of course, but I think he handles him. I do remember I was on Dwight Joseph versus Perrin on the Contender Series. Felt like I got a bit of a lucky bounce there, but had the dog, so close fight betting the dog. I don't hate it. But yeah, honestly, I can't speak too much about this one because I haven't gone back and really looked into Jay Perrin. But from what Dan said, it's ringing a bell in my mind. It seems like he's pretty run-of-the-mill, decent everywhere. But coming in on short notice versus Bautista is certainly a tough ask for your debut.
Absolutely. I would tend to agree with that. And the other thing I would just say is that a lot of people rate Bautista for the Miles Johns win. And I don't as much. I kind of, you know, don't rate Miles Johns as high as a lot of people do. And so that's again been a fade train for me. So something that, you know, just to keep in mind there is that might be part of how he's been valued. And so I'm going to have to do my due diligence on the underdog here in order to make a bet. But I do think Bautista, fine fighter, probably deserves to be the favorite, especially with the short notice nature for his opponent. We can move along to a featherweight fight between Jonathan Pierce, JSP, and he's been living up to that name a little bit more since the Joe Lozon fight, getting after these takedowns a bit and getting on top of guys and making them quit. Kai Kamaka, again, one of these guys that, with due respect for everybody who steps in the octagon, I feel like he's a guy that I was pretty reliable to fade there. He's definitely a guy who's got potential, but he was very green and he's made a lot of mistakes and kind of had some cardio issues, some grappling issues. I felt like that was going to be a problem for him as a matchup. So this one, Christian Rodriguez is a guy I did cash on the Contender Series. I had a lot of success betting Contender Series fighters, but I wasn't ready to go all in with him on the Contenders. I think he was a -200. I bet 1 unit on him, and I think I bet on him to win by KO. So, man, this is a tricky fight. You know, I don't think he's a bad fighter. A lot of people have said that this week. I don't think he's a bad fighter, but it's about styles and it's about matchups, and you know, people fight in weight classes for a reason. He is a younger guy, but he's so much smaller that it shocks me that their reach is listed as identical given that height discrepancy. So it'll be interesting to see these guys square off. Oftentimes you find that, you know, the tail of the tape is important, but it doesn't tell you everything. And sometimes those are not true, just like outright not accurate. So that's something I'm going to be looking at as well. Want to see what these guys look like face to face, because we're also going to see this guy potentially, you know, looking a little bit heavier in terms of muscle, won't have to cut any weight, probably be feeling good, ready to perform. But I think he's got an uphill battle. And when you're the smaller guy and the other guy wants to grapple, that's a problem for you. That's going to be tough. So I think that he's going to have a long night at the office, and, you know, he's going to fight for your money, I would think, but I also think he's probably going to have a losing effort, unfortunately. JSP is a lot to deal with right now at 145. He's a big 145 for its own right. And, you know, this is a small 145er that he's got across from him. Dan, how do you feel?
Oh, it's not a small 145er. It's a 135er that he's got across from him. I mean, listen, actually, I think Christian Rodriguez, out of all the newcomers on this card, I think he's the best one. I'm very impressed with this kid. The only issue is he's not a 45er. He's a 35er. So, like, after this fight, like, let's give him Jesse Strader. You know what I mean? Let's get him on track. But, like, the issue with the JSP fight, look, if JSP is arrogant because he's coming off 2 straight wins and he wants to test his stand-up here and he doesn't go to that relentless wrestling, well, then the dog is live. But what JSP brings to the table is something that I've been talking about a lot lately, which is, like, you know how, like, the calf kicks were like a huge trend, and rightfully so, and they still are. They're such dangerous weapons. Another big trend you guys need to pay attention to is these relentless wrestlers that can shoot, you know, takedown after takedown after takedown, and they don't get tired, man.
The Maximov effect.
These guys like Ronnie Lawrence, Jacob Malkoon, Nick Maximov, and then some bigger names include Bilal Muhammad, Merab Dawalishvili, Islam Makhachev. Like, dude, that style is so fucking tough to deal with because you stuff like the first 5 takedowns, and then you're like, you know, you're fucking gassed, and they're not even breathing heavy, and they're still trying and trying and trying. That kind of shit breaks you, man, straight up. So, I mean, it's really up to JSP to just come out here and fight smart. Like, if he wants to get into a technical kickboxing battle with this kid, I just think that's a stupid idea because Rodriguez is really good in that realm. You know, Rufus Sport Striker kind of reminds me of like a bantamweight Manny Sanchez, man. I like the kid a lot. But if JSP comes out here smart, takes this kid down over and over again, it's going to be a long night in the office for the young man. So give me JSP to win this fight. And then after this, we book Rodriguez with Jesse Strader and we get him on track.
I love it. I love every part of it. Z, how do you feel?
Yeah, I love what Dan said about as far as all the debutants. Christian Rodriguez is the one I'm highest on as well. I mean, I really like this kid's striking, man. I love his hand position, the high shoulders, you know. A lot of guys will like have their hands up, but he has his like guard is always up. I really, really like it. Making a lot of improvements in Rufus Sport too. But I can't overlook the size difference, the wrestling. And again, like we spoke about earlier in this podcast, how the hell did JSP lose to Lozon? Like, you make that fight now, what's that line, you know? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I do think JSP wins this fight, but look out for Christian Rodriguez in the future because I think he's going to have a ton of fun fights and success in the UFC, in proper division. And also, I'm picking JSP, but it's one of those spots, like Dan said, if he doesn't come correct, he might find himself in trouble. So I would just, if you're making big parlays and stuff, like, I don't know. Again, Christian Rodriguez is a very good fighter, so don't overlook this kid. But for this matchup in this situation, I do have to go with JSP.
I love it. And taking a look here, I just wanted to take a look at the prop for under 2.5 rounds. Jonathan Pierce, Christian Rodriguez. I'm seeing -137. So if you want to cover your ass in the incident that Jonathan Pierce isn't the one that gets the finish, then hey, you could look for those unders. You could look at the fight doesn't go. But yeah, broadly speaking, I think Pierce, is more likely to find the finish here. I wouldn't lay his money line, but I see, a lot of the prop shoppers that we got in the chat already dropping a lot of good options for you guys. So scroll on through there and see all the different round props and things that they're dropping. I think a lot of it makes perfect sense to me. With that being said, we can move on to a fight in the middleweight division. And, this is one where you could either do a lot of tape or you could just try and think about this one in your head and guess how it's going to play out, right? And I think from a mathematical standpoint, it would be hard to make an argument for Abdul Razak Al Hassan being past, even money here. And the reason being is just because the guy doesn't win decisions. He doesn't really fight to win decisions. He fights to knock people out, and that makes for fun fights. It also makes for, difficult money line options, right? He's not going to give you a ton of that submission equity. He's not going to give you that decision equity. But I don't think he has zero decision equity. Like some people are talking about, it's not likely that he wins the fight by decision, but I don't think it's impossible either. We see every week, people get their first win by X. But with that being said, I think it's unlikely against Buckley, who's probably going to throw at a better volume than him over the course of the fight. I do think that it's very live that Buckley gets shinned on the temple in the first 10 seconds of this fight. Buckley doesn't have great defense. He is a little bit chinny, and Abdul is known to come out, throw a couple hard shots, and a lot of times people get put away. So I will probably have some Abdul Razak early round props, to be honest with you. I don't rate Buckley as highly as some other people do. I do think that Buckley is fun and dynamic. That Impa Kasanganay fight cost me a shit ton of money. Just full disclosure. I really was convinced Impa was going to beat him that night. So I have lost money fading this guy before. That's why I'm not going to be playing the money line here. But Abdul Razak, early round props, something I'm interested in. I think that the decision line on Buckley that people have been talking about all week makes a lot of sense to me. And it mitigates a lot of your risk. Mitigating risk is a great strategy for betting. So if you're of the mind that, Buckley has, Razak has a 5% or less chance of winning by decision, you should be absolutely playing Buckley decision only at -125 or even up to -150, whatever it is now. So that's my thoughts on the fight, Dan. How do you feel?
I just feel like it's going to be a really exciting fight. Listen, I'm glad that both these guys got outside their comfort zones. Razak, he had to make a change, man, because word on the street is in Texas, he had a lot of yes, man. And you can see that in the performances, man. Like when he was on that skid, he was also going through a lot of shit behind the scenes. But moving to Colorado for him was huge because, like, I get that, what can you take away from a 17-second knockout, this and that, but it's not about the fact that it was a 17-second knockout. It's about the fact that he's got his confidence back. So now he feels like himself again. He's not going to be gun shy out there. And then with Joaquin, he kind of did a similar thing. He actually went to Extreme Couture, which is big for him. Allegedly, up until that last fight, this dude was like working a full-time job, and not because he wasn't making enough from the UFC. He just liked that consistent paycheck, knowing that he was going to get a paycheck every single month. And then once he got knocked out by DiCarico, he was like, dude, I got to be a full-time fighter. So now he is a full-time fighter, training with guys like Sean Strickland, Chris Curtis, and all the guys at Extreme Couture. I almost said Extreme Curtis. I think it's a good move for both guys. Yeah, I mean, listen, I got a problem, dude. My problem is I pick Razak like every fight, and I think it's because like it stems from he cashed 2 max bets back to back for me against Sabah Homasi, and I've just had a soft spot in my heart for him ever since. I love my Africans, I love my knockout artists, but yeah, obviously if it goes past the first round, I'm sure you know, you gotta favor Buckley there. I mean, Razak's never won a fight that's gone past the first round. Not saying it can't happen. So it could be a thing where Razak looks amazing in that first round. Maybe you get dog odds on Buckley going in that second round. Maybe you want to take a look at the live betting window, see what the deal is. I'm gonna pick Razak to get this first round knockout, but not with really any kind of confidence. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Fair play. Yeah, I don't have a great deal of confidence either, but that's my lean as well. Z, how about you?
All right, hear me out, boys. So Buckley knocked out Dikiriko via head kick, right?
Here we go.
And then, sorry, the other way around. Dikiriko knocked out Buckley with a head kick, right? Yes. And then Razak knocked out Dikiriko with a head kick. So to complete the head kick trifecta, we're going to have Buckley knocking out Razak with a head kick. And that would be the funniest thing. But no, in all seriousness, this is a very tough fight to predict, man. And honestly, nothing would surprise me. Even if they get gassy and they both just like gas out down the stretch, because you got to understand too, like that Razak is at elevation. His cardio might be improved. I think it's reasonable to say that there's a chance it's improved. Obviously, his archetype is that of an explosive fighter who, you know, it's a very taxing style. And like Levi said, and other people have too, like he hasn't won a fight outside of the first round. So if you are on Razak's side, you might as well just bet him to win via first round. But I don't know. I think there could be more nuance in this fight than that. And to me, it's just, again, very, very tough to predict. Like both of them could finish each other early. If it goes late, I'm not sure. Because like also Buckley was getting whooped last time out and really pulled that win out of his ass, you know, against Antonio Arroyo. He was getting beat down pretty bad, if I remember correctly.
And I think Arroyo is not good.
Exactly. Yeah. And also doesn't have
Arroyo's also like 6'3" and
true.
Razak's like 5'9", but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, as far as betting, I'm staying away. I think you could throw something on the under 1.5. It's only -125. Stands to reason they're going to come out here and bang it out. I don't know. If you want to bet Buckley, it's just so dangerous to go in there against Razak in the first round. So I like what Dan said too about targeting a live bet. But yeah, for me, I'm just staying away. So I'm not going to make any more jokes or take up any more of your time.
Never a worry, my man. We always appreciate jokes on the Liam Picks Fights show. All right, boys, we can move along here to the main card lightweight matchup featuring Jim Miller and Nikolas Motta. I was reading down further. I think that this is a fun matchup, you know. When's the last time Jim Miller was in a boring fight? The guy comes out there to get in a fight. You know, he likes to throw down a little bit. He's always got the grappling in the back pocket. I think when Jim Miller's got 5 minutes of cardio, he's a real handful for a lot of people. But with that being said, he has shown now that he is a complete cardio liability down the stretch. So I think that, you know, you got to get creative if you want to back Jim Miller here. You know, the other thing is, though, I do have a hard time wrapping my head around UFC debutantes coming in against people that are really experienced, like the likes of Jim Miller, and being pretty significant favorites here. You know, if he was a short favorite, I would get it. But it's gone to the point where he's like -190. He's like 65% here against Jim. And I don't know. I think it might be a little bit wide. I haven't gotten involved myself. But I think Jim Miller is live to catch a finish here, to submit this guy early in the fight. We have seen that he's been submitted in the past. We've also seen he's been able to defeat good grapplers like Joe Solecki, but Joe Solecki is more of a positional grappler than a finisher. You know, he finished Austin Hubbard. That was a nice feather in his cap, but otherwise he's a lot more positional. And I think that I don't know, that this fight just gives me vibes like Jim Miller might come out here and do it again. I didn't like what I've been hearing from Nikolas at the press conferences about needing the money and kind of being like desperate for this opportunity to come around. I just have a little bit of concerns about how this matchup looks, but man, Miller's cardio down the stretch is what's keeping me off it so far. Dan, how do you feel?
Out of curiosity, man, if you don't mind me asking, what state do you live in?
The great state of New York.
Oh, okay. All right. Never mind. I was hoping he said New Jersey, so I'd be like, oh, so that's why he's picking Jim Miller. And actually, Mota moved to New Jersey, interestingly enough. He was doing a lot of training with Frankie Edgar, with Edson Barboza, with Marlon Moraes back when like they were, doing their thing in the UFC. So I get the whole, you got the legend with the most fights in UFC history taking on some random contender series guy. How the fuck is this guy favored? But he's not some random contender series guy. I mean, this guy was on the Ultimate Fighter in 2015, same season as Joaquim Neto BJJ Silva, same season Gleiko França won. So Nick actually won his first fight on the house, and then next fight lost to the eventual winner of the season, Gleiko França. And I mean, so he's had that experience all the way back in 2015, and he's fought some real dudes on his regional scene, man. I mean, like Joe Selecki is not some bum. He fought my good friend Robert Hale, who, guys, write down that name, Robert Hale. You will see him in the UFC very, very soon. And the only place you can watch the Robert Hale versus Nikolas Motta fight is on my YouTube channel. So type in Half the Battle, hit that subscribe button, and then once you're on there, search for Robert Hale highlight reel. And that's the only place you're going to find that Nick Motta versus Robert Hale fight. Literally the only place. So back to this guy's experience outside the UFC. So 2015 was already on the Ultimate Fighter, goes back to the regional scene. And with the Selecki fight, if you watch that fight, I mean, Selecki was taking him down. Selecki was mounting him. Selecki was taking his back. And he was able to survive 2 rounds of, being dominated by Selecki on the mat. And he had that urgency in that 3rd round to go out there and look for the kill. And when I tell you he got the kill, man, I mean, they had to bring out the smelling salts. It was a devastating knockout, but not as devastating as his knockout. Like if you hit the pause button right now and you go to UFC Fight Pass and you type in Nikolas Motta versus Cesar Balmaceda, like you want to see them bring out the stretcher. You want to see one of the most brutal knockouts you've ever seen in your life. I'm telling you guys right now, Nikolas Motta versus Cesar Balmaceda, it was scary. It was disturbing. Like that's the kind of power this guy has. But then you wonder, like, what happens if fights get extended? That last fight on Contender Series, I felt like that was a huge step in the right direction. He showed that he can actually point fight because, when he was fighting my buddy Robert Hale, he was more of like a Brazilian banger. He basically, his quotes were like, I'm a kid from the jungle. I just like to fight. Whereas now he's fighting smarter. I think the Rob fight kind of humbled him. And what happened in that Robert Hale fight was Nikolas Motta charged after him recklessly. Rob caught him with a check left hook. Rob got overexcited. Rob goes to finish the fight. And then they had a very rare double knockdown, which you don't often see in MMA. So after the double knockdown, they both get up and, Rob was able to finish the fight. So y'all remember the name Robert Hale. Very, very exciting guy. And again, when I tell you that and y'all are like, well, I just looked him up. His record's 11-5. What do you mean, man? Yeah, it's 11-5 because this motherfucker was out here going up weight classes to fight undefeated Russians, going the distance with them, landing over 100 strikes with them. He was just taking some dumb fights because he was overconfident early in his career. Now he's taking the right fight. So look out for my boy Robert Hale. But Nick Motta, after that loss, comes back, puts on a nice little win streak, has some devastating knockouts, shows he can go the distance. And this thing with Miller is so dangerous in that first round. But for the last half decade, you get Miller out that first round and he ain't going to win the fight. Now, I get it. That last fight, he won 10 seconds into round 2 against an actual guy that does not belong in the UFC. Like the last dude, that Ghost Pepper guy, now he's a debutant that does not belong. Nick Motta, it's not the case at all. Motta is 10 times better than that Ghost Pepper guy. So I actually think Motta comes out here, weathers this early storm, gets a 2nd or 3rd round KO against the legend. And we're all going to be very sad because we love Jim Miller.
Totally fair play. Z, how do you feel?
You owe me $5 every time you say fair play, Liam?
I was going to call him out on that too.
I got you, dude. I got you.
No, I'm just playing.
I'm running a tab up.
Or we take a shot every time he says it.
Yeah, we need a counter on the screen. But I'm just playing. I took the fight doesn't go the distance -130. I think it pretty much covers what Dan was saying too. Like Miller's super dangerous in that first round. Motta is obviously super dangerous throughout the fight. I just watched that left hook KO of Balsamada, and yeah, he clotheslined him. Yeah, he clotheslined him for sure. But one thing I wanted to say too is, like, if you're expecting Motta to knock out Miller, you could formulate the argument, well, Miller's only been knocked out, I believe, by Dan Hooker and Donald Cerrone, and those are like long, very good strikers. And he was knocked out with a head kick and a knee up the middle. However, he was also hurt in that last fight versus Gonzalez, who I agree does not belong in the UFC, and he was also hurt versus Clay Guida. And I think the only person Clay Guida has hurt in the last decade, I think, is Joe Lozon. So I do think that, it's coming to an end for Miller. Again, like Dan said, like, we love Jim Miller, man. Back in the day, he was the dark horse of the lightweight division when he was on that streak, having only lost to Gray May. That's when I came into being a fan of the sport. And yeah, it's been a great career for Jim Miller. But I think taking the doesn't go is a good way to just cover both angles. I'd be surprised if obviously I'd be surprised if it goes the distance, and I wouldn't be shocked if Miller comes out here and gets a first round finish, but I also wouldn't be shocked if Mota knocked him out along the way. So yeah, man, doesn't go the distance, minus 130. That's closed a little bit, but I still think it's a pretty solid spot.
Absolutely. And to your point, my man, minus 120 you could find, minus 121 you could find on the fight. Goes under 2.5 rounds. I think that still covers, a good amount of the equity if you want to get in on play.
I always opt for
I know you always opt for the doesn't go.
Because the last second finishes, there's nothing sweeter, bro. It's the best way to win a bet is like those last second finishes. But fair play. Like that is it's a better line. But yeah, I would still opt for doesn't.
Fair on that. So I think
he stopped himself.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm going to be self-conscious of it. I think that, Mota has a good chance to knock him out here to win by finish. I think that's why the UFC set this up. But I also think Jim Miller, it's a fight. So Jim Miller's allowed to win it. He's allowed to submit the guy. He's a dangerous guy. He's been in there with guys as dangerous as this guy. So for me, there's nothing new about this fight for Jim except the fact that he's more likely to get knocked out because of his age. And his his accumulated miles. He's been around for a long time, but I don't think that takes away from his grappling upside. So let's see it. Round one is going to be an absolute banger, and from then it will probably get sad if it's not already over. So let's have a good one, boys, and let's make it short. With that being said, we can move along to a heavyweight bout. Just the highest levels we're getting to on this card, guys. Parker Porter, 12-6, regional darling. John Jones' toughest fight to date. Then we got Alain Baudot on the other end of things. Kind of a rough road to hoe early on in the UFC. Gets Tom Aspinall in that debut, coming off of a finish loss on the regional scene. A lot of people have talked about. He gets the distinction as the winner based on a marijuana post-fight violation there. But I do think that Todd Stout put on a pretty decent performance there. Granted, that's a light heavyweight fight. People should be aware. Alain Baudot has moved up to heavyweight in his recent bouts. Tom Aspinall, did eat a couple of shots to get inside range there, although Aspinall kind of eats a couple of shots in a lot of his fights. He is slick. He does have great offense, but he's also a little willing to get touched on the face. I think Arlovsky was able to touch him once or twice, and he was like, F this, I'm wrestling. So I think that he did the same thing against Alain Baudot, right? And Alain Baudot tried to throw a kick, gets it caught, gets taken down, basically had zero answers on the ground. We just saw him instantly passed, shells up, doesn't really have many answers from his back. So that was a concern, right? Then he goes on his next bout. He's looking good early, right? He's beating up Rodrigo Nascimento, who I don't rate as a very good fighter altogether, but he's working well behind the jab, the left hook. The guy is like a little bit mobile for a heavyweight, but his cardio starts to fall off around the 3-minute mark. He's easily pushed back against the fence. And I felt like he was looking for a way out in that second round. The guy's got some just questionable finish losses. Like, I know Dan, went viral over the weekend for taking somebody to task on a KO being called fluky or fixed. And, this is the kind of knockouts that we see where Alain Baudot, man, he's been on the other end of some knockouts that are a little bit weird, a little bit questionable, like turns himself completely side on to eat a couple punches and falls down. It's very strange stuff. And I will say he is live to do some meme-like stuff. Like he will throw spinning back elbows that are surprisingly precise. Like, I don't know why a guy has a more precise spinning back elbow than a jab, but that's what you get from Alain Baudot. He lands that with more accuracy. But I do think he's going to have some problems here. I think Parker Porter, if he elects to, will be able to get takedowns in this fight. Will be able to bully this guy against the fence. Granted, Nascimento's a little bit bigger, so that might be might play a factor, but Parker's a guy who is very big, carries a lot of weight at the heavyweight division, and knows how to move it around. I also think that if he gets on top of this guy, Bedo is a complete fish out of water, will be live to give his back, will be live to get pounded out from top. But I think Parker Porter is going to grab that submission here. I do think he's going to take Elan Baudot to the ground, take the path of least resistance, and find that sub. That's what I like. I like him by sub at plus 700. I like Parker Porter to win this fight inside the distance. I haven't found a plus 110 on a book that was available to me yet. If I can find that, I will probably take it. And that's how I feel about this fight. I think that Parker Porter should win. I'm not passionate about playing his money line here because it is a heavyweight fight. And as you guys saw with that Tai Tuivasa fight last week, sometimes, it's the guy who can take punches better that will win the fight, because both guys were getting absolutely shit kicked in that fight, but one of them was able to wear the damage and keep coming forward. I've seen Parker Porter come through some damage before and keep fighting. I think he's got the better heart between these two guys. And so I like Parker Porter in this cage fight. Dan, how do you feel?
Dude, everybody in the chat calling him Porker. I don't know why, but the shit's making me fucking laugh, man. Like, there's something funny about that, even though it's like not funny, but it's hilarious. So like, I literally laid minus 350 on Aspinall straight because I was like, it should be like minus 950, right? Like, and then I bet on Nascimento the last fight too at like some stupid chalk price because I don't feel like this guy Baudot belongs in the UFC, but I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like he didn't make me sweat that second time around. He definitely did. But I also think that, Nascimento was coming off a KO loss. Nascimento is known more for his jiu-jitsu than his striking, whereas Porter, he's been stopped in the past as well, but he's definitely a very solid striker and he's what we like to call a solid journeyman, So, I mean, if this becomes a battle of wills, Parker Porter is going to win this fight, man. Bottom line, if it comes down to who's got more heart, 100%. I'm just curious to see if like Baudot's got anything in the early going, because that last fight, like he definitely quit. I mean, there's 100% he quit, but he looked way better in that fight than he did in the Aspinall fight. And then Z, how do you pronounce the name of the Canadian dude that beat him?
Who?
Todd Stout. About. So I'm just fucking around, but yeah. So that fight, like you were talking about, dude, like Todd Stout straight up submitted him, like right, or TKO'd him. I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched that fight. He finished him in that fight, and dude was smoking a little reefer. He was smoking the devil's lettuce. So they overturned it and gave the win to Baudot. So it says he's 8-2. He's actually 7-3. Which isn't like weed legal over there, dude. Like, so I don't really understand.
Yeah, I still think you're not allowed to be high during the fight. So I think it's still illegal in competition. And I don't think it was legal at the time of the fight. But regardless, that's an insane win to have on his record.
Yeah.
Can I also just point out he got absolutely death touched by Dolce Lungi and Bula.
Yes.
And everybody else he's ever fought is a complete can.
Man, if you want to see, we were talking about brutal knockouts with that Nick Motta. You want to see a face plant KO? Watch Dolce versus Baudot, man. I mean, like they get into this wild exchange, and when Dolce decided it was his turn to land something, I mean, talk about going face first into the canvas, man. So yeah, definitely make sure y'all check out that Dolce Lungiambula fight. Look, man, it's a heavyweight fight, so I'm gonna be nervous the first couple minutes, no doubt about it. But if Parker Porter can, while they're both fresh and they're both going 100 miles per hour, if Porter can just stay conscious, stay awake for me, like we get this dude to the fourth minute, we got him straight up. So Porker, just get me to that 4-minute mark, buddy, and you win this fight.
Let's go. Z, are you back in Porker Barter?
Guys, I am extremely confident in my position in this fight. I bet 430. The fight doesn't go the distance, minus 215. How does this fight see the cards? If you want to talk about heavyweights, the divisional finish rate is 65%. 100% of Baudot's fights have finished. There was one fight about 7 years ago that went into the 5th round, still was a finish. 100% of their losses have been finishes, and 90% of their total fights have been finishes. Stylistically, how this fight plays out, yes, Baudot is a little bit dangerous in early goings, fights at a frantic pace. Parker has been melted before, but if he gets this into the 2nd and 3rd rounds, I mean, we've seen it. Baudot has no ground game. Baudot has no gas tank. Baudot has no durability. So I do not understand how this fight goes the distance. And honestly, I bet minus 215. But if you have 5 dimes or Betway, this is a minus 180. In my opinion, that's an incredible bet. You're covered on basically everything. I'm also looking to get involved with Parker by inside the distance and also by submission, perhaps also round 2 and round 3. But at the end of the day, the doesn't go here is a very, very confident pick for me. I just don't see how it hits the cards. If Parker gets on top of him, he's going to finish. Parker can walk him down. Parker can chop him down. Parker can take him down. And Parker actually moves pretty well on the feet for a big man. You know, he's pivoting off the front leg. He's slipping his head to the side and throwing down the pipe. He's just, man, I think Parker's going to smash him down the stretch if he doesn't get finished in the first. So yeah, do I want to play the money line? Not really, because there is some early danger, but do I want to play the doesn't go minus 115? Hell yeah. I mean, how does this fight see the cards? And it's also nice to understand why I think this line is what it is. And that is because Parker has gone the distance in his last 2 fights, but those are against, you know, UFC staples. I don't want to say incredibly durable guys or anything, but they're decent fighters as far as their ability to withstand damage and fight to a decision, right? Parisian's a full-sized heavyweight, could take the damage. And Chase Sherman as well. You know, he's been in the UFC fighting to decisions throughout his career. And then finally, like, all that being said, the last point is one that you guys made as well, where Baudot did move up from 205 to heavyweight. So Parker is way bigger than him. And also, it does not even make sense that Baudot is in the UFC. Like, let's just break this down real quick. He got into the UFC on a short notice replacement coming off of a loss where he was finished via submission, right? We all saw that. Then he loses his debut, gets smashed. All right, fair play. Give him a bit of a pass for that. Then he also lost to Nascimento. So he's on a 3-fight losing streak where he was finished in all of them. The only reason he's in the UFC is short notice. The only reason he's still in the UFC is because Nascimento tested positive. So if those 2 guys didn't test hot for stuff, he's not even in the organization. And then outside of that, his only win since 2017 is versus Nakajima, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, who was 0-2 at the time, now is 0-5. He's not on this level. I think Parker finishes him. Again, incredibly confident on this fight not to go the distance. If BetOnline would open the props, I would be betting Parker inside the distance, Parker submission, perhaps Parker rounds 2 and round 3 as well. This is by far my most confident take on the card.
You know if that Nakajima guy is still taking fights by chance?
No, why?
Because, I mean, we got, you know, some guys here on our local scene that could really benefit from a win, you know, over
We'd
this
love
guy.
to have
Who's,
Nakashima in the NFC.
Nah, we're not interested in all that. No, I mean, listen.
Lethway 4 years ago, and that was it.
You know why we don't want the water buffalo in the NFC? Because, like, what are we going to – you expect us to sell tickets with a guy that literally backs up and does nothing? Like, when I tell you that Tyron Woodley looks like an output machine compared to Fabio Cherant, I mean it. So, no, we have zero interest in Fabio Cherant in the NFC.
Oi, brutal beat for the water buffalo. He'll be swimming back to the watering hole and regrouping for the next battle. I am sure of it. But I think that Parker Porter by sub, I have probably an irresponsible amount of money on that. I thought plus 700 was a pretty ridiculous number. I do think that size will play a factor. I think that the grappling edge is massive. I think that Bedo is a complete liability in terms of cardio, heart, and pace. And yes, he has a win condition here. It's to win by knockout. But I can't really get past that being about a 20% outcome. So I do think, you know, there might be some marginal value on Parker Porter as the side here. And I do think that Parker Porter should get the win this weekend. Going to be looking to play Parker Porter pretty significantly.
You have, guys, if you have 5 dimes, I'm telling you, my 80 for this fight not to go the distance is insane. 90% of their fights have finished, 100% of their losses finishes. And that minus 180 is on par with just heavyweight finish rate. Like, if I had that, I would bet even more on it. Like, that's an insane line.
Now, I do think Bedo has the reach advantage. I just wanted to mention so people don't think it was overlooked, but it's just something I don't think is going to matter here. I think Parker Porter is going to smush him into the fence or take him down most of the time whenever he wants.
And even
Yep.
So Liam, even if you want to say he's just going to like grind him up against the fence, we've seen Baudot quit. We've seen him gas out and give up. So I'm not even worried if it's like, oh, Parker's, playing a slow game. And not to mention, I've seen interviews too where he's like, okay, I've got my 2 wins in the UFC. I'm on a new contract now. I'm definitely going for the finish here. Sprinkle that little bit of narrative on top of what is already a value cake, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I seriously love this fight not to go the distance.
Dude, and the other narrative is, why is Alan Baudot in this fight? It's almost assuredly to build up this winning streak that Parker Porter is on.
He shouldn't even be in the UFC.
In terms of the organization's values, exactly, because this guy has just been used to feed other people wins so far in his UFC run. So I think that, he's kind of being, fed an L on the way out, and they're trying to build up Parker Porter. So I think that if you want, Dan, you can contract the services of Alan Baudot in the NFC, and at least it'll be entertainment value. You know that.
Yeah, but I mean, we got to pay for his flight from France. We're gonna lose money on that transaction.
Absolutely, that would not be plus EV. But we can move on. We've got a catch weight co-main event, 195 pounds. We got Kyle Daukaus, and he's taking on Jamie Pickett here. And Jamie Pickett, I did bet in his last bout. I bet it pretty conservatively, less than a unit there. But I added to him live after round 1. He was a more significant underdog. And I was like, why? I don't understand. So played him again live there and was able to come out ahead. Thank goodness he came through nicely in that spot. That being said, that was against a guy who's very green, a guy who really doesn't know how to pace himself over a 15-minute fight, and a guy in Joseph Holmes who was really overwhelmed by the moment. And he's talked about, I need to go back. I need to rebuild. I need to work on my skills. I need to get better. So that's a guy who's got to build his way up in the sport. He's really not ready. Jamie Pickett was able to pick that win off. Jamie Pickett, I don't rate as a very high level fighter, and I think that this line would probably be a little wider had he not gotten some recent wins and secured people some money. Because I do think Kyle Daukaus, skill for skill, is a better fighter than he is. I think he's a better grappler. I also think that Kyle Daukaus will be able to compete with him well in the striking range. He's got a fairly basic game, but I think his boxing pressure, I just don't like the way Jamie Pickett reacts to punches. I think that Jamie Pickett oftentimes has a hard time letting his hands go, and I think that's exacerbated when he feels like he might be under some threat of return fire, and I think that's certainly going to be the case here. Punahele Soriano was easily able to out-wrestle this guy when he was completely gassed. So I think that Kyle Daukaus, especially when he's fresh in this fight, should be able to out-grapple him. If he so chooses, should be able to out-wrestle him. So I favor Kyle Daukaus to win this fight. I favor him to win it inside the distance. I have bet him to win the fight inside the distance. And that was at plus 200. I think that Kyle Daukaus should have Jamie Pickett covered in this fight, and I expect him to get the win here. Dan, how do you feel?
I feel like one of my favorite things about Contender Series is actually at the end of every episode when you get to hear what Dana White says about like his reasoning of why he signed someone and why he doesn't sign someone. Like y'all got to pay attention. Like, because when I watch like tape and especially with these newer guys, and it has the whole episode of Contender Series, you skip to the end after you watch the fight to see why or why not they did or didn't get signed. And it's really, really like stuff that I like to hear, because think about this for a second. So like Dana White said about that dude, Joseph Holmes, like he said, look, the kid's not ready for the UFC. But we'll give him a shot on Dana White looking for a fight, whatever. So they gave him a shot. He felt obligated to give him a chance, but like he said it from the jump, this kid does not belong in the UFC. What was his criticism of Kyle Daukaus? He said he doesn't have that killer in him. He said like the dude dominated his fight, but I just don't see that killer instinct in him. So the reason I bring that up is because like I think Daukaus should take this dude's back in the first round and choke him out, but sometimes I'm questioning the killer instinct of Daukaus. Like, and back to the Dana thing, like when Dana said Ronnie Lawrence is special, you should listen. When Dana said that Impa Kasanganai might get hurt if he signs with the UFC, like, do you remember when Dana didn't sign Impa the first time? The outrage and the uproar, like everyone was like, are you fucking kidding me? He didn't sign Impa. And Dana's exact reasoning was, look, the kid's talented, but I think that if I sign him right now, he's going to get hurt in the UFC. So go back to the regional scene, go win a belt, and then we'll look at you down the line. So Impa actually goes back to the regional scene, but he doesn't take any fights. He takes like a full year off, comes back to Contender Series, and won again. So Dana felt obligated to sign him. And guess what ends up happening? Impa ends up on the wrong side of one of the worst knockouts in UFC history. Like Dana was saying, I'm scared this kid might get hurt. Oh, look, he got hurt. I'm scared Joseph Holmes isn't ready for the UFC. Oh, look, he wasn't ready for the UFC. Ronnie Lawrence is special. Oh, look, Ronnie Lawrence is special. And now with Daukaus, Dana said this dude doesn't have that killer. So if you're taking that inside the distance, that's why I'm kind of concerned, man. I mean, look, I know on the streets, the Kevin Holland fight is definitely considered a knockout and a sub in one fight. Definitely finished him as far as I'm concerned. But if that clash of heads doesn't happen, I'm not sure if he gets that finish. So what I'm worried about is like, a 3-round cage push type fight. Like that's what I'm worried about here, man. Conventional wisdom says Daukaus finishes this guy in the first round. Charles Byrd finished this guy in the first round. Beverly Hills Ninja finished this guy in the first round. So what's going to stop Daukaus from finishing this guy in the first round? I don't know, but at least Pickett is coming off 2 wins. Maybe he's got a little bit more confidence. So we'll probably see the best version of him, but I'm not sure if the best version of him is good enough to win a UFC co-main event. So give me Kyle Daukaus here. It should be a first round rear naked choke, but don't be surprised if it becomes a 3-round ugly, cage push type fight.
I hope for the sake of my bank account that doesn't happen. But I will also say this. I do think that Kyle Daukaus showed off that killer instinct in the Kevin Holland fight. Yes, they robbed him of it, but he was coming for blood. He came out with an aggressive game plan. And I actually thought Kevin was looking better than he has in any of his recent fights. And he was still getting outclassed by Kyle Daukaus up until the head clash. So I do think that it's something of a concern for somebody like Jamie Pickett, who's having competitive minutes with Joseph Holmes. I do think Kevin Holland is much better than somebody like Joseph Holmes as well. I think the level of competition has been significantly higher. And again, when I just think of why the UFC put this matchup together, I don't think it's because they think Jamie Pickett's the next big star. It's a co-main event. They want Kyle Daukaus to look good, shine him up, get this win, and potentially a finish as well. So I think that Jamie Pickett's shown some durability, some heart, some willingness to stay in tough fights. But I think that this could be an ugly fight for him early. And I think Daukaus is going to be very confident coming into this fight. So I think he's going to try and run through him. Z, how do you feel?
No strong takes on this one from me. This is not Parker Porter versus Alon Baudot. Obviously, I think Daukaus has better skills. I am like Levi said too, I am worried that this gets into like a clinch fest, potential split decision if it goes the stretch. But I mean, I haven't bet Pickett at plus 200. I'm not extremely high on his abilities as a fighter. I think he has the potential to become a good fighter. That's what's very frustrating about a guy like Pickett. If he was kind of a more fundamentally sound striker, was like using his length and in and out and using his physicality and stalling guys and stuff, mixing in elbows off clinch breaks, like he could be a good fighter, but so I do worry if you're laying the chalk on Daukaus, but at the end of the day, I think Daukaus' skills warrant him being the favorite here. But again, it's not really a strong take. I didn't put a ton of time into this fight.
Fair play. And I'll do my due diligence as well. With a lot of people concerned for this play, I do want to make sure that my ducks are in a row. But, man, I haven't really liked Jamie Pickett, much of what I've seen from him in the UFC. It took him a bunch of tries to get into the UFC. So he has some persistence, some heart, but he's also a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth. Kyle Daukaus comes out of one of the best regional scenes in the country. Granted, Nikolas Motta does as well, but Kyle Daukaus comes from that CFFC scene. I'm biased. I'm from the northeast of this country, but I also know that they put out a lot of tough fighters from here. CFFC has a very good win rate in the organization. So I think Kyle Daukaus is going to have an edge here, and I think he's going to come through as a favorite. I think he's going to come through inside the distance here. And finally, right the wrong that was the Kevin Holland fight and cash me an inside the distance, because I had him inside the distance that night, and by golly, they robbed the shit out of me. So, let's hope we can get a clean result one way or the other this time on Saturday night. But we've got a main event here. That is the reason why I asked my man Dan to come on the show today. We've got his boy Jamahal Hill, Sweet Dreams, taking on Johnny Walker. And man, Johnny Walker was like riding this wave of momentum and hype and got shut down by Corey Anderson. And that's sort of one that'll take the wind out of your sails, right? Like there's a lot of guys you could lose to, get knocked out by. The Thiago Santos fight, by example. I don't think that would have been the total dampening of his stock, except that he's had that knockout loss to Corey, except that he had the boring stall out decision loss to Nikita Krylov, where he showed very incompetent grappling overall and gave up positions and poor cardio as well in that matchup. He's shown a little bit better ability to manage a fight and manage cardio against Thiago Santos. Granted, it cost me thousands of dollars because I blew up 1 million parlays at the casino that night on Fight Doesn't Go the Distance and Johnny Walker Moneyline. So that was a real torture. But I must say, I don't think it's my recency bias and my hatred of Johnny Walker that makes me think Jamahal Hill is going to win this fight. I think it's that Jamahal Hill is much better than he is at mixed martial arts. I could end up looking like a fool here because I do know that Johnny Walker can throw some good kicks. I do know that he can throw dynamic knees. He jumps into range. He's a little bit unpredictable in that way. And I do think that Jamahal Hill is a much more conventional fighter. But I also think he offers a lot more, natural punching power. I think that he's the much more dynamic threat in the pocket. And I also think that Johnny Walker's chin is a complete liability. When you see somebody like Jamahal Hill, the volume he lands at, he's a big man, and he's going to throw a ton of strikes. So even an errant strike, I think, could knock out somebody like Johnny Walker, but moreover, Jamahal Hill doesn't really throw many errant strikes. He throws a lot of precise strikes at a target and they land. So I do think Jamahal Hill is probably going to piece up Johnny Walker en route to a knockout here. But I have a little bit of concerns, granted, because Johnny Walker wasn't willing to engage in the 5th round of a fight where it was 2-2. He was more so feinting, moving the outside. I know he got bad advice from his coaches, but as an athlete, I've disregarded things my coaches have told me in the past when I thought it would get me the win. And that's what you have to do sometimes. And I was kind of surprised that Johnny Walker just stood there and let the fight pass him by. It was disappointing. So I don't think Thiago Santos is going to win many more UFC fights. He's past his prime. His knees are completely shot. His movement looked compromised in that fight. I think that there's a lot of red flags about that performance as well. It was a very tepid, timid performance from Johnny Walker. And my question then becomes, where does he win the fight? Does he win the fight by trying to wrestle and grapple? I don't think he could do that. His grappling looks poor. Jamahal Hill got exposed by Paul Craig, who's like the exposer of the light heavyweight division's grappling. Like nobody else has that kind of grappling in the division, really.
The man submitted and off.
Exactly. But I mean, just like he's audited everybody. If you're sticking around in the guard of Paul Craig, he's going to audit you. So I just think that, that's a lesson learned. That's a mistake that won't be made again. I think that the guard of Johnny Walker is probably not as dynamic. Not to say that Hill should get into it, but I think that he could pass the guard of Johnny Walker. I think he could stay on top if he needed to. And I think he's going to outbox him and dance around him on the feet. My concern is the low kicks. I do think Johnny Walker can throw a decent low kick. That's about all he tried last fight out. It's a little bit of a threat against somebody who's jab heavy like Jamahal. But I do think Jamahal is never going to give him a free leg kick. He's going to try and make him pay with counters. So I think it should be a good fight that tends towards violence. I can't see how Jamahal Hill lets him off the hook for 5 rounds here. I think Jamahal Hill is going to chin check him at some point, probably in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, like the Paul Craig fight is so irrelevant here. And I hear people talking about how, Paul Craig took him down and submitted him. I'm like, what? Paul Craig pulled guard. Jamahal Hill was so overconfident in his own ground game that he was like, I'm going to beat this dude at his own game. Big mistake. But you hear the kind of accountability he took after that L. I mean, he didn't run away from the facts. Like he faced it. He faced the music like a man. And you got to respect that kind of stuff. And like I always say about Hill, I mean, look, he's got all the physical things you want. He's 6'4" with the 80-inch reach, has that one-hitter quitter you want from a guy his size, but he's got the output of a dude in the 45-pound division. So I love everything about Jamahal Hill. It's just this is one of those fights. This is a fight that we like to call a no-fluke situation. It's like if this comes down to like, who's more skilled and who the better fighter is, Jamal's going to whoop this dude's ass. It's just about, look, Johnny Walker is a dangerous guy. Like, he could possibly chop him down with leg kicks. He could maybe, land a spin, a flying knee, an elbow in the clinch, like something, a head kick. Like, so yeah, we're worried about Jamal getting caught in this fight. And that's literally it. I'm not worried about Johnny Walker's takedowns. I'm not worried about Johnny Walker's volume. I'm not worried about Johnny Walker pulling guard and submitting. I'm not worried about anything except getting knocked out. That's literally it. And if Jamahal Hill is conscious, not only is he going to win this fight, but he's going to whoop this dude's ass in a way where, like, you've seen that fight on the regional scene where Johnny Walker got knocked out 3 times. Now, to Johnny Walker's credit, he's like the complete opposite of Alain Baudot. Like, Johnny Walker's got heart. Like, Johnny Walker kept trying to get back up and kept trying to fight. So, like, at least he's got that going for him. But then you see that Santos fight, and I'm not sure if it was because, he's coming off a layoff and a surgery. I'm not sure if it's because he had the New York Times bestselling author in his corner giving him, horrendous advice. Like, I'm not exactly sure why that fight went the way it did, but I expect a more aggressive. Yeah, you see the New York Times bestselling author right there. I expect a more aggressive Johnny Walker. It's just I think he's gonna get caught with something. You watch that Ryan Spann fight, and Ryan Spann, like, that's embarrassing that he lost that fight, man. I mean, he dropped Johnny Walker twice. The finish was right there. But if you've watched Ryan Spann's career, you know that he's been finished the exact same way 3 times on a takedown attempt via Travis Brown elbows. Like, he's been finished that way 3 times, guys. So you hear his coach Saif Sayud, as soon as Ryan starts shooting the takedown, Saif's like, get out of there, because he already knew what the fuck was about to go down. And credit to Johnny, when he actually hit him with that elbow to the side of the head, that shit was brutal. You could hear the sound of that. So Johnny's got some devastating stuff. I love Johnny's ground and pound. It's just that when you talk about, like, the process and, method behind the madness, like, Jamal actually fights behind a jab. Like, I love how he mixes his attacks. He goes to the body really well. He's got his teep attacks. He's the long range strikes, the jab, the straight left down the pipe, the hooks, the kicks, everything. I like everything about this kid. I even like his get up game. You go back to that UFC debut, everyone talks about how he got taken down 6 times. I talk about how he got back up 6 times, man. Like, so basically, don't get caught and you win this fight. So I'm really hoping that that's what happens, because I got Jamahal Hill via first round knockout here.
I absolutely love it. First round knockout, bold prediction. I do think that it's very in play. I think Johnny Walker might try and run away from him for a while before Jamal's able to track him down. But boy, I think that that's a live possibility, especially if Walker, is kind of, pushed by the crowd noise and everything else from his last fight, the negative reception, to try and be a little more active, get in the pocket a little more, engaged. I think that could lead to a much quicker outcome of this fight. Z, how do you feel about this one, and what do you like?
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I think early finish for Hill. I was also on Walker last time out versus Santos at plus 195. Again, I thought he arguably won the fight. He did break his foot in the 3rd round, so that might have been why in the last 2 rounds he was more inactive, but he was inactive that whole time. And again, that was because of the inability for Santos to move. We remember Santos being an explosive, dynamic middleweight, but that was like, we're coming on, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago now. That's far gone. And Hill is just not that weathered. He's a fresh fighter. He's very, very accurate with his punches as well. I know Levy's been a fan of his for a long time. I'm later to the train, but I'm on him now. Like, like Levy said, the output is insane. The accuracy is very, very good. He pushes forward a lot. He's going to force the fight. He's also going to dig to the body on Walker, who's a guy who historically had very poor cardio and also very poor striking defense. He gets caught on the way in a lot. He's been hurt in a lot of his fights. He had those 3 quick finishes in the UFC, but then he was hurt versus Corey Anderson. He was dominated by Krylov. He was hurt versus Ryan Spann and then hit him to the back of the head with the first strike of that sequence. And then the Thiago Santos fight, which, again, it played out that way, in my opinion, because Santos doesn't have the mobility anymore. He did enough to stay in the fight, but he's not the same type of guy he was before the John Jones and in his middleweight run. So yeah, I think Jamahal Hill just far too accurate, going to put hands on him and hopefully gets him out of here within the first 2 rounds, because the way I bet the fight, I got $50 on Hill to win in the first round plus 300. I got $50 for Hill to win in the second round plus 500. And I also have the under 1.5 rounds. Again, just $50 at I think 105, and I do believe that line actually got better. So if you want that, it's even better. So ideally, it'll be a early second round TKO for Jamahal Hill. Again, and like you said too, like Walker doesn't have necessarily the worst chin, because even though he's getting hurt a lot, he does find his way back into the fight, like he did in the Span fight and like he did on the regional scene where he tried to get up multiple times. But Hill's the type of dude, if he has somebody hurt, I mean, he's going to put volume. He's not going to let him there. So I think it'll be a TKO within the first 2 rounds for Jamahal Hill.
Awesome. Well, there we have it, folks. We have gone from all the way at the bottom to all the way at the top. I know my man Dan has a date that he's got to get to. So want to shout out Dan for coming on the show. Give him a quick opportunity to let the people know where can they find you besides all the spots linked in the description below, and any thoughts that you have on your way out, my friend.
No, I mean, my thoughts are thank you for having me very much. And it was good talking with you. It was good talking with Z. And also to all your listeners, thank you guys as well. I'm on Twitter at Best Fight Picks. For some reason, like I only get notifications from like people I follow. So if like, you know, if you're a fan of my show, Half the Battle, and you enjoy my work and you want me to follow you back, just send me a DM and I'm happy to interact with anybody that supports me. Obviously I had Jamahal Hill on my show last week. So y'all check that out. Half the Battle. Had Billy Q on there as well. I'm probably not supposed to talk about this, but I'll talk about it anyway. So Sunday, we're doing a little special something. I think I'm going to have Sodiq Yusuf on. And then Tuesday night, I got Tuesday
night. The announcements.
I got UFC light heavyweight prospect Da-Un Jung, which like I don't think anybody else is doing interviews with him. It's going to be like with a translator and shit, which is cool. It's the first time I've ever done something with a translator before. It'll be interesting.
Awesome.
I'm curious about like his take on a couple things. Like I think he was cocky in the Sam Alvey fight. Like I think that he could have easily finished Sam Alvey in the first, but you know, sometimes like he's the only guy in Sam Alvey's current like 7-fight winless streak that like didn't get the dub. But like, you know, he's got all the capability of getting the win. I thought he was being cocky in that fight. And then I'm also curious about like, you know, I like to eat a lot of Korean tacos. I'm curious if in Korea they actually have that or if that's like an American thing. So I'll be talking to Da-Un Jung on Tuesday. Sodiq Yusuf on Sunday. My podcast Half the Battle dropped today. Best Fight Picks on Twitter. Thank you guys very, very much. We'll speak soon. And good luck this weekend.
Appreciate you, my man. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you as well. And I think you did a hell of a job breaking down these fights. Couldn't have done it without you. Thanks, boss.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely. What
Hey,
do you
Dan,
got for the people? Where can they find you?
What's up, bro?
Z's MMA on Twitter, YouTube, zmma.ca if you want to know all my bets and what I got going on. But Dan, do me a favor and thank Da-Un Jung for cashing that plus 200 underdog ticket versus Hadis Ibragimov, the best fade in the UFC in the last 10 years. I really appreciated him cashing that for me because he had to go through a bit of a storm, but he's a tough Korean warrior. So yeah, he got it done.
I will tell him that. So Wade said, can you get Water Buffalo on? And that's funny and stuff, you know, because like I get messaged by people like, you should have this fighter on, you should have that fighter on. And like, I'm not a bullshit artist. Like I fly straight. So like, I can't have like some boring fighter on and not ask them hard questions. Like I remember like, when I was doing some interviews back in the day, like a management company wanted me to interview a dude that had just tested positive for steroids. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm going to ask him about that. And they're like, no, you can't ask him about that. So I was like, all right, well, I'm not talking to him then. So, you know, I can't interview Fabio Charant and like, not be like, dude, like, what the fuck, you know? So yeah, like I gotta only talk to like exciting fighters that I want to talk to, that you guys want to hear from, that like, you know, Sodiq Yusuf, like when's the last fucking time he had a boring fight? You understand what I'm saying? Like, this dude can lose his next couple fights and it doesn't matter, like, because it's not about winning and losing. I mean, at the betting window it is, but as far as being a fan, it's about entertaining. And you go out there, like Billy Q is coming off a loss to Shane Burgos, which to me, I'm like, that was an all-time UFC classic. Like, I want to talk to you. Like, I don't give a shit if you got your arm raised or not. And like, no one's interviewing Billy Q after that fight. That's like one of the best fights I've ever seen. So to me, it was like a no-brainer to have Billy Q on my show. And then Billy Q was really down about the L. And I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, you put on an all-time UFC classic, man. Like there's nothing to be sad about. Like, so yeah, I only want to talk to exciting fighters, my man. But I appreciate y'all. Everybody take care.
I love it. So thank you guys very much to my panel. Thank you guys very much. We still got 47 people rocking live with us in the chat. So appreciate each and every one of you guys for making it to the end here. Want to say on the way out, if you can, go ahead and like this video. Get subscribed to my channel. Yes, sir.
Let me just drop a bonus one for the people, because if they made it this far, we got to appreciate them, right? There is a fight that's taking place in Bellator weekend. It's Jordan Newman versus sorry, just let me bring it up. Jordan Newman versus Herbert something. Cody Herbert. Yeah, so Jordan Newman versus Cody Herbert. I would be absolutely stunned if Jordan Newman not only doesn't win this fight, but doesn't finish this fight very quickly. I'm on the under 1.5, but props are opening up for him inside the distance, and that's another great look. So, yeah, Jordan Newman is going to smash this guy. He's a 2-time national wrestling champion. Cody Herbert was being taken down by a guy who was 0-11 a year ago. And not only was he taken down in that fight, but that guy's 0-11 and had been finished in 11 fights. And Cody Herbert was the first guy to win, but not finish him. Jordan Newman's going to smash him in 1 round. It's very easy money if you want to get on that.
Can I drop a gem for you, Z, in response to your gem? Here's the gem that I have back. I was in the building when Jordan Newman won his national championship.
Wow.
Yeah, he wrestled for one of the D3 schools in Wisconsin. Absolute stud. If I'm thinking of the right guy, I'm 99% sure I am. I looked up his picture.
Liam,
looks very familiar.
He's fighting a guy. I cap you at -300 over, and he's a middleweight. I would cap you at -300 for sure. You could take that guy down and sub him easily.
Come on, dude! Yeah. I got the sweatshirt on. What can I accomplish? You know what I mean, I feel like I'm basically in the octagon right now.
I love this lower level shows for spots like this. Herbert has no takedown defense, no ground game at all, especially off the bottom, and he's fighting a wrestling champion. The only reason Jordan doesn't finish him in the first is if he wants to get rounds in striking with him, but if he decides to, he finishes this right away.
I love it. I love it. So with that being said, guys, we now got you covered with a little bit of scratch on Bellator. We got you covered with that stuff on UFC. So make sure you go ahead and support my man Z. All of his information is linked in the description box below. Go ahead and get subscribed to his channel. Go ahead and get yourself one of these. If you want to be like the cool kids, if you want to hit +400 underdogs, you got to sip from the mug of glory. That's what I always say. But I also think that Z has done just a tremendous job in terms of making it a community feel, having these kind of dialogues with everybody. So happy with how the chat turned out today. Thank you guys tremendously. Sharpest chat in the game. I said that earlier. I truly believe that. You guys are absolutely money today with the analysis. I'm going to be going back through and reading and learning from you guys on the way out here. So appreciate all you guys for your time. Want to say thank you very much for watching. God bless and good luck with any and all action that you decide to take this weekend. Always gamble legally, responsibly within your means. If you guys weren't here last week, I'm going to take the victory lap right now. Biggest winning night of my life, plus 22 units at UFC vacant, or excuse me, at UFC 271. And that was with a miss on Robert Whittaker points. So, you know, not the worst bets. I think the other bet I missed was Ronnie Lawrence inside the distance. Didn't cash for me at plus 220. But otherwise, guys, it was a pretty damn good slate for me. Went 4 for 4 on the money line. 7.5 units on Jared Cannonier. 3 units on Bobby Green. Crushed the closing lines on both of those. Maxime Grishin, 3.9 units at -155 as well. And then underdog shot 5 units, Tai Tuivasa. You didn't hear many people in the community on it. I was on it. My man Z.
I was on it.
My man Brooks. Brooks Kapka. Got to shout that man out. One of the smartest in the game. Follow that man on Twitter if you don't right now. But by God, it was a good cash. It was one that I felt was there for the good guys. And Tai Tuivasa, it wasn't sweat free, but boy, did he deliver in the end. What a fight. Z, you had something on that too?
Yeah, I had Tuivasa plus 155. Just thought it was a good banger, you know, like why, like, and I forget who I heard. I think it was, let me shout these guys out too. It's Bro Dojo. It's Mac Malley doing a podcast with Max Randall, I believe. I'm more familiar with Mac Malley, of course, but great podcast. And one of the things they said was that Derek Lewis's durability doesn't get talked about enough. He doesn't like to take punches. So if someone's going to be there to throw back with him, you know, he can be broken, as he has in all his UFC losses. So yeah, nice to know you were on that for 5 units. Much respect there, Liam. I was saying too, if I could buy stock in any MMA capper, I think I'd get a few shares of Liam House in there, because you're definitely a sharp kid, man. And I shouldn't even call you a kid, because you could strangle me. So I'll watch what I say.
Never that. I truly appreciate it, my man. I like to think that I don't know anything. I start every week 0-0, but if I do the work, if I do the research, I can hopefully come up with some good bets and try and make more good bets and fewer bad bets as time goes on. That's what we're always trying to do here. And you know, that's what we're trying to do. Whether you're with me on these plays this week or you're with me next week, hey, that's fine. We're just trying to give honest, solid analysis here, and I hope that's what you got today. So thank you all for tuning in. This has been another great episode of Liam Picks Fights. It was brought to you by Prize Picks. If you want to sign up with them, all the information you need is in the description box below. Appreciate you guys for your time. We'll come back next week and have all the same fun again. Take care, everybody.